Hello everyone. Welcome to video number 31 of Journaling Together. This is weekly reflection day, and before we look at the week that was and set the intention for the next week, I wanted to talk a little bit about loss and grief, because I'm sure we're all in a similar space where our respective countries, I know in London this week, the conversation is going to happen about what's next. When are we going to get restrictions lifted? What does that look like? How are we supposed to navigate the spaces together? And I kind of wanted to spend some time thinking about that, and the changes that I'm going to notice, and from now into the next coming weeks, there's going to be a profound sense of grief, of loss, but grief. I know people that have lost their loved ones to this, and that's something that's devastating. And I listened to a podcast by a woman named Susan David, who has a podcast called Checking In, and it's she's phenomenal. And if you've been following the Happiness Lab with Laurie Santos, professor at Yale, they are recommending each other's shows, and I can't recommend them enough. Anyway, Dr. David talks about grief and the difference between sadness and grief. Grief being something that you actually step into, and it consumes you. There is a difference between sadness and experiencing grief, and she talks about the necessity to acknowledge the grief and to experience it however you need to. So it's just so important to also remind myself, remind yourself, that we should, not judge how we're experiencing things, to be a little gentle with ourselves and give ourselves, leeway to kind of feel and interpret what's happening around us in our own way. What I love about this podcast is that she does give really good insight into how to recognize, how to manage, and how to move forward with grief, because it doesn't go away. It just becomes a part of you, and it along with all of the other positive and negative experiences in your life. Grief doesn't go away entirely, not this kind of grief, but it does subside, and it doesn't pop up as often or as intensely. So it just becomes a part of us, and it's there to inform us of something. And that's what's important, is to make that connection of what is the lesson, what is the insight, I should say, to this experience. So I think what I'm going to do is spend some time thinking of writing a letter to my future self. I'm going to actually write to myself, my Friday self. So this Friday, that woman that I'm going to be in that moment, I want to write a letter to her to let her know that grief is something that is going to surface as I navigate these next couple weeks. It can happen anytime, but that just to remind myself to be present in it, and that coming to the present, not ignoring what's happening, the grief that I'm feeling or the immense loss that I'm experiencing, but reminding myself that yes, this is happening, and I'm feeling it, and I'm dealing with it. And just reminding myself gingerly to come back to the present moment as often as I can. That may be very difficult, but in the present is where there is happiness, and that's okay to feel too. I have to say very quickly, in the Latino community, and I'm sure in other cultures, there's a little bit of guilt associated with feeling a little bit of happiness during sad times. And This is not, we're not normal, we're not meant to always be in one state. It's very important for us as human beings to kind of experience different emotions. We're not meant to be in one constant state. So if joy pops up, or happiness, or laughter, that's important to embrace too, and not to brush under the rug. So that's what I'm going to do, is write a letter to my Friday Nancy, and to look back at the week. It's been, something that's just, we fell into routines. It's been good, and with that, there's going to be change. So that's where I'm going to be, and I invite you to join me on the page. What did you do well last week? What are you proud of? What moments do you want to capture that were positive? What didn't go well, perhaps? What were some of the challenges that you faced that you'd like to capture as well, so that you could learn from it? And what are you deciding and taking away from last week that you want to move forward in a different direction, perhaps? Okay, so I hope you join me on the page. I will see you once a week for these videos. I have other projects, and as we reintegrate, there'll be everybody will be moving around a little bit more. So I hope that you watch the other videos that I recorded. I'll put a catalog so you can see what topics were covered, and I hope that by now you're in the practice of journaling. I love journaling together with you, and if you want to shoot me a note, please do so. Okay, here we go.